Hello, and welcome to Self-Care is Sexy. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host. We're a weekly podcast that's here to generate and share self-care ideas with each other. Last week, we had the opportunity to talk about making self-care a priority, and I hope that you were able to make some time for yourself and get some self-care. I really hope that you've changed your focus from what's wrong and all the problems, and oh my God, and what's next, and switched that focus on you, on what's important to you. And if you have a hard time doing that, make sure to check out some of my past episodes, all about what you can do to make sure that you're making you the priority. If you missed last week's show, you can check out my podcast, Self-Care is Sexy, anywhere you find podcasts. Okay, I want to give you a quick preview of what to expect from today's show. So today's show is specifically for the people out there who are protesting with the Black Lives Matter movement. We are currently going on night 28 of protests here in Portland, Oregon, where at one point, the Federal Justice Center was set on fire. If you haven't seen it, if you've not been a part of what's going on, I highly recommend you go down there and you see what's happening. Just drive past, like not at night or whatever, but just to witness the destruction and the obvious anger on display. It's just amazing to see. So this week, I'm giving you a full self-care guide to protesting and what specifically you need to do to help be a positive part of this movement. This is all since the murder of George Floyd. And as demonstrators, we are demanding a stop to the killing of Black people and the call for the defunding of the police. It's very simple. And these protests are happening all over in all major cities in the US right now and all over the world. And even in small-ass towns where the stakes are extremely high for participating in these demonstrations. So we're giving you a before, during, and after guide to protesting self-care style. But first, a few quick housekeeping notes. First, I want to let my listeners know that I just got a brand new order of some merch just in time for summer. I got the Razorback tank tops, which are great for yoga, walking, drinking tea, and getting some serious self-care in. Our signature black tees for women with the Self-Care is Sexy logo across the chests available. We'd like to thank Blazing Stitches here in Portland, Oregon for always delivering high-quality swag for us. If you'd like a new tank top or tee, you can shop at the website www.selfcareissexy.com. Our t-shirts are $20, tanks are $15, cinch sacks are $5, and stickers are $1. Please go shopping now. Secondly, I'd like to take the time to ask you for a favor. If you don't mind, while you're listening to me ramble off all the ways to take care of yourself during protesting, I'd like you to take the time to rate the show. Share it with a friend, or maybe tell someone, or reach out to me and let me know what you're doing for self-care. My email is Chris, K-R-I-S, @selfcareissexy.com. Okay, last, real quickly, I wanted to share with you folks that I got a super hardcore trolled, and it really helped me with my self-care because I'm putting this content out there with the very simple and pure idea of just trying to get everyone to remember that taking care of yourself is important and that it's sexy. It makes you look good. It makes you amazing and unstoppable when you really care for yourself. And when I put that content out there, it's really not for praise or accolades, although it certainly feels good to know that I'm helping some people out, and I appreciate all that lovely feedback. But nothing has taught me more about my self-care practice than reading and having been like the subject of trolling, right? So trolling is these haters that are like, they see you doing something and they've got to shit all over it because either they don't do anything and they have nothing else better to do, or maybe they just come from like a serious negative focus all the time and all they can do is pick up on the worst parts of things. And I'm a big fan of like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Because if you can't come up with a silver lining or a teachable moment or some kind of common ground, it's you that has the deficiency, not the person putting the content out there. So I got trolled pretty hard. This person said, your content is super unoriginal. You're just repeating what Tony Robbins and other coaches say, and had said you cuss too much. And I was just like, really? And it hit a nerve because obviously I'm not trying to parrot the greats, although they're incredible and repetition's never a bad thing. So if we all have similar philosophies on how to be better people and successful and happy and confident, maybe we should start listening to this repetitive stuff, right? And secondly, the most important thing this taught me through my self-care is I felt myself almost starting to buy into that. Like, oh man, what if I'm not original? What if I am just repeating somebody else? And I started to slip into that sort of negative headspace. And I immediately caught myself. I'm so proud. I can tell my self-care journey is paying off because I caught myself and I said, you know what? I don't fucking care what this person thinks. Clearly we'd not be friends. Clearly I'm not for you. Move along. No need to drop your hateful comments on my IG or my Facebook or stalk me on the internet. Just move along. Go find some content that's original, that's wholesome, that speaks to you at your level. I'm not your cup of tea. That's totes fine. I get that. I'm not supposed to be. We will connect with the people that are supposed to connect with us, who are going to inspire us. We're only attracted to what's attractive to us. And it's not the same for everybody, and that's okay. I just wanted to bring that up for all my listeners to remind you that when you're being put down or when you come up against that sort of negativity, I hope that you'll use it as fuel to immediately turn it around and focus on the best parts of yourself and the fact that, hey, you're putting yourself out there enough to where you have trolls. I've officially made it, right? When they start trolling you, that's when you know you're good. So that's it. That's all. I just wanted to share that with you. It had nothing to do with today's content, but I just thought, I'm going to say something. I'm gonna. Okay, so housekeeping rant over. Let's get to the content. All right, so I want to start today by sharing with you one of the most profound protest experiences I've ever had. Now, I'm a little bit different than your average bear. I've actually been to quite a few protests in my lifetime, but the most impactful by far was the WTO, World Trade Organization protest in Seattle, Washington. I believe it was in 2000. This is kind of pre-cell phone day. And I had heard about this protest. If you're not familiar with the WTO is, I highly recommend you check it out. It is a disgusting corporate conglomerate that masks itself as being helpful. It is not. It is dismantling communities. Please join the fight against these things that suck. So the WTO is holding its annual get-together in Seattle, Washington. And of course, being from the Pacific Northwest, I know a lot of people in Seattle. And at the time, again, this is pre-Facebook, pre-cell phone, pre-social media. You got the information by word of mouth on college campus. That was the primary source of information. And so I'd heard about it through other friends and activist groups on campus. And I made the decision that I was going to go, that this was important to me. And I really wanted to be there and be a part of it. So I'm broke, I have no money, I am a starving college student. I've just relocated from Spokane to Portland, Oregon, trying to find my way, make a community, etc. I hear about this incredible activist moment, and I'm somehow internally compelled, beyond reason, to somehow get to Seattle and participate. Well, as it happens, ride after ride fell through. I didn't have my own car yet. And I made the profound decision that it was important enough for me to attend that I actually hitchhiked. So it's almost 200 miles from Portland to Seattle, Washington. And at the time, I'm a young woman in my 20s. I'm wide-eyed and ready to go. And I embarked on that journey. Well, thank God, a very close friend of mine was like, you're not going to go alone, goofy. You cannot hitchhike by yourself. You will die. And he came along with me. And together we hitchhiked up north along the I-5 corridor. It took us about 8 hours to get up there. It's usually like an hour and a half, 2-hour trip by car. But again, hitchhiking, you're just waiting for the ride. And we get into Seattle proper. we get downtown, and we're there at the corner where the Nordstrom's used to be, and the WTO's meeting was happening in this hotel. I can't remember the name of the hotel, but it was at this very large intersection downtown Seattle. And leading up to Seattle proper, there were all these city buses lining the streets, and they were on full blast. And I didn't understand it at the time that that's a deterrent method to get people, to choke you out from the smoke, from the exhaust. But as we went further into the city, we emerged into this massive crowd. The ALCU was on one end, there was the teachers union was on another end, and we were sort of in a mulling crowd of different ethnic groups that were, with bullhorns calling things out. And I find myself finally here, immersed in this protest amongst this insane chaos. They're burning down the Starbucks. They're writing "fuck the WTO bitches" on Nordstrom's. There's just all this chaos happening. And in the midst of it all, I hear someone call out to me. And at the time, as a young person, they used to call me Chrissy. And so this woman calls out to me. She says, "Chrissy, Chrissy." And I, it's familiar, right? I'm in a crowd of thousands of people, burning it down. And I hear someone that I recognize calling my name. I recognize their voice. So I look over, and it's a teacher of mine. It's a freaking grade school teacher of mine, Mrs. Munoz. And she is shackled to a box in the square of the intersection. So the protesters had somehow built this square platform in the middle of the intersection, and people were chaining themselves to it as an act of defiance against clearing the roadways. And I reach out to her, and I'm just blown away. In appearance, we were both from a very small conservative town, and at first appearance, I thought she was just this loving, gentle school teacher. What would she be doing in the middle of a giant protest in Seattle, Washington? Yeah. So I say to her, "Mrs. Munoz, what are you doing here?" And she says, "Well, I'm here with the teachers union, and the WTO is has really unfair practices that make education nearly impossible in the country where I'm from and in other countries, and we're here standing up and protesting against that." And I'm talking with her, and I'm just so amazed. I'm so blown away. She's this dainty little lady. I'm this is incredible. And behind me, I failed to notice that a platoon of riot gear police were coming towards us, and they had literally formed the line that you've been seeing in the media that they do. They've been trained to be a line of defense that will bulldoze the people along. The problem is that the line isn't strong because it just takes one or two people to get through one of the police, squeeze through their big giant shields, and the line has broken, right? That's why you see them all focusing on someone who got loose, right? And they all descend on someone, and then there's police brutality that ensues. The reason is because they have this really outdated way of trying to clear people from these protests. So I'm sitting there crouched down next to this box with Mrs. Munoz, and she's chanting, and there's people screaming, and the energy is just on fire. You can feel the anger and the frustration and the desire for change. You can feel it, and the energy of the air around you, and there's this heightened tension. And the ALCU and their big guys are coming one way, closing off the intersection. You've got another group of protesters coming in, closing off another intersection. Meanwhile, the cops in riot gear are closing in, and it was all closing in on us. And I thought for sure, you know what? I'm going to jail. I'm getting my skull beat in. This is a bad idea. Why did I do this? And Mrs. Munoz, my 5th, 6th, and 7th grade teacher, turns to me and says, "This is the most profound act of participation you will ever do in your life. This is the most profound act of participation, you being here right now." And it empowered me. And I stood up, and I locked my arms with these strangers surrounding this box. And I decided in that moment that I was going to stand up no matter what. And this experience changed me forever. Being a part of that, it will awaken something within you. It will remind you at a primal level that when things get beyond a manageable point, the only thing we can do, the responsible thing that we can do, is voice our concerns and